Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Stargirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we get, an insight and understanding, an opportunity to learn who Yolanda is. We learned that she was kind of on top of the world. It seemed like she was very popular. I think she was running for, student class president, or whatever the case may be. But it looked like she was popular. It seemed, she was dating Henry, so I was like, okay, so if she's dating Henry, what was that whole stuff that Cindy was talking about last episode, calling her a slut, and it's like, I'm dating. I thought she was implying I'm with Henry now, and you made a move on him that makes you a slut or something like that. I thought that's what she was implying, but it's like, no, her and Henry were dating. And she didn't like it because it just seemed like everyone loved Yolanda. But then she sent a picture to Henry. The moment his name popped up on her phone, I was like, my immediate thought was, it's not Henry, is it? It's someone pretending to be him or something. I was like, I just had a feeling. But she sent him some, photos. And then it ended up getting thrown in her face. Because at one moment we see Henry, it looks like he might be looking around at it with his boys and everything. And then all of a sudden Cindy snatches the phone. I'm like, oh. But he grabs it right back. So I'm like, oh. But then later on you see while Yolanda's giving a speech or whatever, Cindy's kind of got this devilish look on her face. And she goes on her phone. So it's like, it started with her. But then later on conversations make it seem like she still believes that it was Henry. The thing is, we don't know whether it's a thing of while Henry was away, she managed to grab his phone. And kind of did it without him knowing, and sent the photo to herself and then sent it to everybody else. Or maybe he did send it around to some people and somehow it got to Cindy. Part of me was also thinking you don't think Henry's phone was cloned or something, so when he got it, she got it as well. I don't think it's that, but it's just somehow Cindy got her hands on it, and I think Henry did. He was showing it to people. I don't think he sent it out, because when you look at the expression on his face, it didn't look like, oh, I know what. It's no, he was shocked that it kind of got out there too. So we understand now, how she got in the position she did. And obviously, Courtney's looking through all these, her school yearbook and everything. And she's trying to, she's trying to find candidates to, join the Justice Society of America. So it's I didn't realize that one of the things she took last episode was one of the Green Lanterns. I was like, holy shit. I'm assuming that's a Green Lantern, not unless that's something else to someone else, but I'm fairly certain. Like I said, it's just so interesting which one she didn't grab. Didn't grab, once again, can't really do too much with Jay Garrett's helmet. Can't really do much with the Fate helmet right now, I'm assuming, because that's definitely a very specific person type of thing. I am curious to know what the hell that pin's thing is, because she's like, oh, it's just a regular pin. I was like, is it going to be kind of a thing if you've seen the show Once Upon a Time, is it supposed to be kind of how an author has those abilities where they write something and it comes true? Is that what that pin's supposed to be? Because the pin was giggling. It was just haha, laughing. I was like, what the hell is that pin's deal? I mean, she never put it back up. It's amongst her stuff, so it's who knows what kind of havoc that it has been doing the entire time she hasn't been paying attention to it. But she sees Cindy, because Henry and Yolanda kind of bump into each other, and there's not really any words exchanged, but Cindy's just what'd you say to my boyfriend? It's why do you have to be such an asshole? It's Jesus. The whole thing just makes you go, wow. Makes you just remember, you're wow. We were all teenagers at one point in time. I hope we weren't all assholes. I was I know I was an asshole. I was just a douche as a teenager. But I'm man, teenagers suck. But the fact of the matter is she's getting all that shit and Courtney's there being back off, stop. But then Cindy says something very menacing, you won't even see me coming. I'm that's some very menacing shit to say. But the fact of the matter is, Yolanda's I don't want anything to do with you or anyone at the school. Just leave me alone. Because what had caught, Courtney's attention at first was the fact that in the yearbook it shows that she was part of she boxes and stuff. So it's oh, someone with some fighting skills, perfect person for, some fighting some supervillains and stuff like that. So she ends up following Yolanda, and she obviously sees her punching bag and stuff. So I told you I want to be friends. She's okay, I was kind of wrong. I said I wanted to be friends. I wanted to help you, but it's more I wanted you to help me. See, the fact of the matter is, there's something that went down, and I want, your help. There's something going down in Blue Valley. I need your help. Obviously, she's reluctant. She's I'm not going to go. She's all right. So first and foremost, she's the fact of the matter is, come over to my house and everything like that. At first, Yolanda's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make any promises. It's like, the fact of the matter is, and even she was like, yeah, my mom took my phone. I was like, no, that's not interesting. And then we see like later on, like the moment she gets home, she's like, okay. And her mom's like, go upstairs. And it's just like, oh. And then she's like, I was going over to a friend's house. It's like, no, you're grounded. And I'm like, oh, I was like, that's messed up. And I'm sure, like, I'm sure that was also written to be a deeper commentary too of like, she was, for one, it's like, I'm not going to blame her for that situation. I mean, no one should be blamed in that situation. I mean, that's actually a debate, whether it's like, oh, it's your own fault for taking the photos. I think I can understand where someone comes from that mentality. It's just not a mentality I agree with. But I just think it's just a shame because it's like she's being blamed for something she didn't do. She took the photo with someone that she cared about. She's a teenager. Teenagers do dumb stuff like that, I mean, hell, even adults do that, and that turns into a whole issue. Once again, not trying to blame any adults that have done or anything. It's like you send that to someone that you care about, and then it just, it should never be on you for taking the photos because this is between you and someone intimate. Yes, it's a different story because she's a teenager, so there's a layer upon that, but it's like, you can see like her family is punishing her for something that's not her fault. You're like, you're grounded, but she's like, how long? And her mom just doesn't answer, just go upstairs. It's like, man, it's like, if you acting like it's her fault, like, she's already getting enough shit from, like, Cindy at school calling her a slut. Like, now she's got her parents almost treating her like she's one. Like, saying, like, oh, like, it's almost like any bad stuff people have said about her, it's almost like her family's reinforcing it by punishing her for this, It's like, and then Courtney ended up finding out later on about, like, what happened, and she tells Yolanda, it's like, okay, I'm actually the one that blew up Henry's car. I know it, it's like, well, I didn't mean to do it, but I accidentally did it. But it's like, I know what he did to you. And she's like, because the fact of the matter is, she was like, I know he could be a jerk, but he was nice to me. And she's like, after a couple months, it seemed like things were serious, but I guess I was just kind of almost like another notch in his belt, just like another girl that he got to hook up with or got to be with or whatever. So... And that, it's such a, sucky situation. You kind of, you definitely feel for her being under the circumstances she is. So it's like, Courtney was like, covering in my place, I'll show you exactly what I did, and shows her the cosmic staff, and it's like, okay, like, whoa, I just love it, but we're just like casual and being like, yo, check it out, the cosmic staff and everything. Oh my god, let me show you my costume. I got a costume for you too. And Courtney's already got hers on, and she's like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me a little bit like Supergirl, because like Supergirl and probably like The Flash are the only shows that have really like taken time to be like, oh my god, these suits are so awesome. Like, they're the only shows that ever really do that. Arrow doesn't do too much. It's just kind of like almost like ceremony. Say like, hey, you got this new suit. They don't pay too much attention to it. Black Lightning a little bit. But like this is, I'd say Batwoman kind of to a certain extent, but that was after she modified it and kind of made her own, much like Courtney did. But the fact of the matter, it's interesting. That is just, to be fair, they're because for one, they're kids, because like every other superhero show are like, these are like 20-some-year-olds at the beginning and everything, so they're like, it's just like, there's like this like kid-like wonderment that they have. Like some of the heroes have it, but also just, you see it in this moment, just like your teenagers like, oh my god, your suit, she's like, your suit looks so cool, but like mine, Yolanda's kind of embarrassed to come out, just like, it's so baggy and it smells, and she's like, it's like, come on, put the helmet on. It's like, oh, this helmet smells worse. All right, puts the helmet on, and everything gets transformed, and it like becomes very fitting on her body. It becomes like almost like an actual like suit, and I was like, oh, that's so dope. So I'm wondering, is it like magical, or is it an actual like technology built into the suit? I assume that's like some kind of like mystical type of stuff, but regardless, I even love that they went on Wikipedia to look up Wildcat's abilities and stuff like that, and all like the cat-like abilities, like the claws, which are pretty badass, slicing through the microwave. I'm like, why you choose a microwave? Pick something else. It's like you picked the utensil everyone's going to use. Hell, even later on, Mike's trying to put some Pop-Tarts in. He's like, Dad? And it's just like, I guess, well, I don't think Pat would jump to the conclusion of, oh, those are Wildcat's claws, Because obviously Courtney wants to, obviously it's like she lost a friend. Because because for her, it's like, I didn't even have a chance to lose him as a friend because, he wasn't my friend yet. The fact of the matter, it's just like, because for her, it's like, this is the second time Icicle's taken something. It's like, oh, like he took your dad away from you. He now took a person that was on a way of potential becoming your friend, And obviously that's what's kind of weighing the most on her mind. Is like, we got to take down Icicle as well as the rest of the Injustice Society. So... which later on we ended up meeting, like Icicle is meeting with, was it Dr. Ito? And he was just talking about like, oh, Shade betrayed you, which I'm like, oh, what happened in that regard? And he also talking about, oh, the wizard, I didn't really like him too much and stuff like that. Kind of get his body. And then just the fact is that like Icicle's like, yeah. Which I'm like, you're like the boss, and it just seems like even you have even you kind of have paws around Dr. Ito. That's why I think it's kind of interesting. My immediate thought was, I can't really tell by the voice. It sounds like it could be. I'm assuming that's Beth's dad, right? Because he just, later on, she shows up and she's like, oh yeah, Dad's not in town. So it's like, oh, he's out of town just when Dr. Ito shows up. I mean, I wonder if this is going to be, not trying to compare and contrast Marvel and DC, but it's in my head, so I can't help. It makes me wonder, is it going to be a tiny bit like Runaways, where it's like, oh, your parents are villains? Is it going to... I don't think it's going to be everyone's parents, but, I mean, it's kind of... Well, hell, with everything that goes on in the episode, it kind of leans that way, because it's like, well, Henry's dad was a villain. Obviously, William was a villain. Obviously, Icicle... He obviously, he's a father, his kids at the school. So it's starting to become more and more of a pattern of like, oh, so there's at least not everyone there is going to be a parent, but a good chunk of them. And to be fair, this is about the next generation of like them building a new America for the next generation. So it makes sense that they would have kids as well. Like that be the main motivation for doing what they did. Which once again just makes it even more like, why did Icicle kill William's kid? Whatever the case may be, But obviously, Yolanda is kind of enjoying herself at first about the suit and everything. But obviously, it's like, oh, why don't you jump off the building? No, that's what, Wildcat could do. But then it's just kind of like the staff is kind of telling her kind of not to. And she's like, you know what? You're right. Let's not do that. And Yolanda was about to do it, but she was kind of afraid to do it. So they keep an eye on Henry. They're trying to break into the hospital to kind of sneak in. Because it's like, because Yolanda came up with the idea of like, if Henry's dad was brainwaving a villain, that must mean the bad guys will come to visit him. So maybe we check out the sign-in sheet. So Courtney's got her own way in there to cause a distraction. Yolanda has to claw her, and she's praying and stuff like that. And Courtney's like, are you praying? She's like, no. Yes, just shut up. Shush, I need to concentrate. And she starts climbing a little bit. Almost falls at one point in time. And there was a guard that was looking at a brick from the building as she was climbing up. But then, like, Beth came and distracted him. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But going inside, like, it's like, oh, I'm going to turn off the power. And the staff kept stopping her. And Yolanda had to be like, if you cut the power, there's plenty of people on life support here. And then Courtney just kind of looks at the staff and she's like, ooh, yeah, I guess that's right. And she's like, how long have you been doing this superhero thing? Maybe a week? A week? Why am I even listening to you? Your dad trained you? It's like, no. She's kind of figuring everything out literally on her own, because it's not like Pat's going to train her either, because, he doesn't want her involved in all of this. I mean, I don't think he really knows the ins and outs of really how to even begin training, her as a, Stargirl and everything. But I just thought that was neat. Also thought it was kind of interesting, too, because obviously Yolanda was close enough to Henry. She wanted to claw him, but it's like, no, I can't, because... obviously hearing like, oh, I'm like, it's that thing of like, he's such an asshole in your head, but it's like hearing him be like, oh, I miss my dad. It humanizes him in that moment. So she was reserved, but it's a good thing you didn't do that. Like, obviously it's a big no-no in heroes, getting revenge like that, I mean, even though a lot of heroes do get revenge, it's kind of frowned upon of like, being vengeful, but nevertheless, they got the list. Obviously, Courtney calls a big distraction. What also was interesting is their principal showed up and start playing, which, once again, she's got a kid at the school too, so that's why I'm like, it's definitely a repeating pattern. But she was trying to play her violin, and it didn't do anything. I was like, is that supposed to be kind of a thing of, like, maybe it has, like, some magical ability to it, so, like, when she was playing it, she was hoping it was going to wake him up, but maybe the damage from the cosmic staff is so severe, and maybe a combination of the cosmic staff plus his own abilities has kept him locked in his state, that even whatever she was trying to do, because, like, I was expecting, like, some power to generate from it, but it's like, no. Like, I guess, like, maybe, I don't know what to really expect what it fully can do. Like, whether it is just supposed to tap into his consciousness, was it just purely supposed to wake him up? Like, what? We don't know. But now it's the thing of like, well, the principal's there, and the fact is they look at the list later on, she didn't sign it, so she didn't sign it because she didn't want anyone to know she was there. So they're at least aware of this one person that might be associated with it, because it's like, is she a villain? I don't know. As they were leaving the hospital, though, she's like, come on, Yolanda, and Beth's up there down below looking up and seeing this. She's like, Yolanda? I'm like, huh. And it's like, that's why you have code names. You have code names so stuff like this doesn't happen. Oh, come on, Yolanda. Don't rush me, Courtney. Obviously that didn't happen, but, so it's like, huh. So that's going to be interesting, considering the fact is we kind of met Beth. She's kind of energetic, and she just probably like, oh my God, Yolanda, was that you? I don't know if she necessarily will realize that was Courtney. Maybe she will. Maybe she'll put two and two together. Who knows? But I'm interested to see where that ends up going, especially because like her mom was telling her like, oh yeah, stop bringing me food, stop trying to hang around me, be your, like, it's just almost like, it's very sweet. I get it. Like, cause part of me is like, that's kind of shitty because it's sweet. Your daughter loves you and she wants to spend time with you. I mean, it's better than any other teenager that's like, fuck you, mom, fuck you, dad. It's like she loves her parents so much. She's like, no, I want to hang with you. But I get it. You want her to like, it's like, you're a teenager, go out, have friends. Like, you want her to increase her social circle. You want her to be more social and not just rely on you. You want her to, have other companions and stuff like that. I get it. I just think it's like, oh, it's a little shitty because it's just kind of like, oh, she loves you. It's better. You rather have it that way than the extreme other way, but regardless. But despite all this, the fact of the matter is, Yolanda feels like she can't be the Wildcat right now. And I thought it was such an interesting thing because I was like, oh, is she just not going to take up the mantle right now? I was really curious about that because I think that's such an interesting thing because like, and to me, I always, and I've talked about this countless times, I love the duality of like being a hero and your secret identity. And the fact of the matter, she just took up this identity and it's just like, no. I got my own shit to figure out, especially even more so as a teenager, you're literally figuring yourself out. Like that stacked upon itself, like there's layers upon layers of that with Yolanda. It's like I'm a teenager going through everything I'm going through. Like I haven't even figured me out. Like I haven't wanted to be Yolanda in a very long time. I got to figure me out before I can even think about putting on another persona, So it's like, I just thought that was such an interesting thing. I wonder, does that suit just work for anyone, or is it kind of like the cosmic staff of like, if it registers with you, like, oh, there's kind of like a synchronization with it, and it's like, oh, the sync between us is good, so the suit activates. I don't know. Don't go into the ins and outs of it. But Yolanda went home to kind of confront her family because it seemed like legitimately the only person that seems like they're on her side is her brother, because they were like, he's like, could you stop yelling at her? Like, it seems like the grandma just looks almost disgusted with her mom. Like, it seems like her mom is almost on the cusp of being on her side, but it's just like, no, you disgraced this family. You disgraced yourself. Like, and it's so interesting because obviously the actor who plays her dad, I most recently saw him in, he was one of the dirty cops in Bosch. So it's just interesting. But nevertheless, that's, like I said, just, what was in my head right now. But it's just kind of sad. Like, she tried to plead a case of like, I've been punished long enough, don't you think? I shouldn't have done it. I gave it to someone I shouldn't have trusted. But the fact of the matter is, haven't I been punished enough? I want to go back to being, the Yolanda I was before. So I'm just asking for your forgiveness. And so you can help me be that Yolanda again. It's like, you can't be that Yolanda again. It's like, and just like go to your room, and they're not willing to listen to her. And even her brother's just upset. Just like, it's like, it's got to be hard seeing your family treat your sister like shit like that. But obviously for, Courtney, it's like the fact that she's like, I can't do this alone. And she had left the suit for Yolanda, and it's just like, maybe being Wildcat will, maybe rather than trying to do it one at a time, find Yolanda first, then become Wildcat. Maybe by becoming Wildcat, she'll find herself. I mean, the truth be told, it's like, I think that's something that heavily resonated with Oliver and Arrow. Like, I think Oliver found himself. That was always a struggle between him, like, between being Oliver Queen and the Arrow, obviously them being the same, but at the same time being different. Like, I think he found himself as Oliver Queen as he grew as the Arrow, and eventually, well, the Vigilante, then the Hood, the Green Arrow, so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be a thing of like, by growing as Wildcat, she will grow as a person too. Because I think by being Wildcat, it'll give her the strength to be like, no, I am Yolanda. Probably be able to stand up to a bully like Cindy and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, where her story goes from here. Another side of things is the fact is that Denise stopped by Pat's shop to be like, hey, could you, help me with my car and everything? I was acting up. And he's like, okay. So She's acting kind of like a little off, because he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry about your son and your husband. She's like, I need to take a walk. She comes back and she's just like, oh, I want to thank you, Pat. She's like, don't trust anyone in this town. He's like, wait, what? She's like, fact is, they said my husband died of a heart attack. He was super healthy. He fairly recently went to the doctor. It's just like, and he's like, wait, what are you implying? She's just like, forget I said anything. It's like, she doesn't know what's going on, but she's like, there's something weird going on here for everyone to jump on, like, oh, my husband just randomly had a heart attack. It doesn't make any sense. And she's like, oh, my boy, he just wanted to be just like his dad. And she's like, he's like a councilman. She's like, no. She's like, it doesn't matter. And it's like, huh. So I was like, I was wondering whether Pat was going to catch on or not. But then later on, when he's in the junkyard, he comes across Denise's car. So my mind immediately looked, okay, my mind starts going off in many different directions. One, it's like, did they decide to come and kill Denise? Like, the Injustice Society, did they remove her from the equation because they're like, we don't know what William told her, she's a liability, remove her from this? Well, obviously she has her own suspicions considering the fact that she even told Pat all that. So it's like, she could have been talking to other people about things being suspicious. So it could be one or the other, could be both. Could it be she faked her death to kind of get away because she knows something's up? What I thought was interesting when you look inside, like all the other stuff is going except for the hat, and I'm like, you don't think, because like the car was messing up when she went to go, which part of me wonders, is that going to trail back to Pat to be like, oh, Pat, you worked on a car, something went wrong, is it on you? Like, I wonder, is that the direction that's going to go? But like the fact is her car was acting a little funky earlier. Could it be the fact is that it's like, could that have been her setting up her quote unquote death or disappearance? Or was it the fact of the matter is that was just startup of like, oh, like they were like messing with her car? Or was there some objects in that box that were magic related that were messing with her car? I don't know. Like, is she dead? Is she alive? Like, was she in the hospital? Like, we don't know. Like, all we know is Pat sees the messed up car and it's like, wait, what's going on here? A lot of questions in that regard. I'm very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us. Obviously, as more and more of the Injustice Societies kind of reveal to us, kind of want to learn more about this Dr. Ito. He even has like a butcher's outfit. Like, I guess he's that kind of, because the way he's like, oh, like I'm not done with my daughter and stuff like that. And I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? It's like, oh, you're building something for him. So I'm guessing it almost sounds like he's kind of almost like the Frankenstein of the group. Like he does whatever experiments he wants to, hence why he wants William's body or something. That's why I'm like, I don't, like I said, the bloody kind of almost like doctory butcher outfit just kind of makes it seem, it'll be interesting to kind of, dive into it. But like I said, there's also that line of like, oh yeah, what about Shade? It's like, what did he do that caused problems? Because he made it sound like Shade betrayed Icicle. And I was like, oh, what the hell is that history about? Love to get to know a lot of these answers. I'm really interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.